Ceist a hooked in Anam Chok to Broughan. 30 seconds to introduce.
Yeah, Minister, this question was prompted, I think, by recent upsurge of very serious antisocial behaviour and indeed criminal behaviour by, among others, by young people in my own constituency. And I know you have responsibility for part of the Irish Youth Justice Service. You shared that with the Minister for Justice, and obviously the changes last year in relation to the incarceration of children in the adult prison are very, very important. But I just wondered if we do need additional resources, particularly in the area of prevention as well.
Thank you very much, Deputy.
Exactly. Well, I will be answering, Deputy, your question in as much as it refers to the staff of my own department and the Irish Youth Justice Service, which is an executive office located in my department, and I'll also answer your question in relation to Oberstown Children Detention Campus, fully aware of the context of the constituency that you so ably represent. Some officials from my Department of Justice and Equality are co-located in the Irish Youth Justice Service. My colleague, the Minister for Justice and Equality, will reply in written format to you in respect of them. But the number of employees of my department working in the Irish Youth Justice Service at the end of each year and to date is as follows. At the end of 2014, there was a headcount of 11 people and a whole-time equivalent of 9.8 people. The whole-time equivalent number stood at 8.6 at the end of 2015 and was 9.6 at the end of 2016. It was 10 at the end of 2017 and as of today stands at 9.9. The whole-time equivalent number of people reflects the fact that some staff in the headcount do not work full-time, so it's a stronger representation of the actual workforce. In relation to the roles of these staff, there are 2 principal officers supported by teams from my department in the IYJS. One principal officer has responsibility for policy relating to Oberstown Children Detention Campus, including the provision of safe and secure custody for children. The second principal officer has responsibility for the development of standards and policy for the delivery of safe care for children in Oberstown and youth justice services. The supporting team consists of 3 assistant POs, 1 higher HEO, 2 administrative officers, 2 executive officers, 2 clerical officers. In relation to Oberstown Children Detention Campus, the numbers employed in the years that you requested are as follows. There were 233.58 whole-time equivalent employees in 2014. The number of whole-time equivalents in 2015 was 215. It rose to 248.5 in 2016. And in 2017, there were 245 staff, and at present there are 241 staff. Recent fluctuations in these numbers are just a reflection of the temporary timing of issues of filling the vacancies.
And you will have for the 2 minutes, Deputy Broughan, 1 minute.
Thanks, Cathaoirleach. Well, Minister, the 2016 report, I think, the Garda Juvenile Diversion Programme, it did make for fairly shocking reading in that there were, I think, 17,500 incidents referred to the Juvenile Diversion Programme and, in fact, 9,500 young offenders. But just in relation to Oberstown itself, I know you obviously have kept in close touch with the campus and with developments there, and we had the report or the review by Professor Ursula Kilkelly. But what is your, if you like, your current invigilation of, say, the HEQA report, which found, I think, that there was serious non-compliance, I think, with 2 of the main areas investigated, and moderate non-compliance with 6 areas. And I know while Mr. Pat Bergen, he reported to the committee here that the campus is licensed, I think, to accommodate 54 young people, and you've just given us the staff numbers. It normally has a population of around 40. But we've heard, in fact, that the critical incident stress management policy, which has been implemented, but that there have been something like 80 very serious incidents over a couple of years, the last couple of years.
Thank you for your question there, Deputy. And as you say, I do have regular contact, excuse me, with both the chair, the board, the executive of Oberstown, and have been out there many times and am due to go out there again. I think in relation to your first set of questions, generally, my understanding is in terms of do they have sufficient staffing available, that we haven't, I think that's currently yes, that there haven't been requests for any additional staff. In terms of the identification of recommendations of improvement, and let's say specifically the ones that you have identified there, as well as many other areas of identified need for improvement in terms of the various reports that they've initiated and completed in terms of oversight, in terms of the way in which they operate their care and protection of children. There's a group that was put together that developed an action plan, conglomerated the set of actions that needed to be implemented. I am in regular contact with them, and my understanding is that those implementation of the actions to improve, and we can investigate specifically the issues you raise here this afternoon, are on target and are happening.
One final minute, Deputy.
So, Curla, well, in the old system, I think when children were in the adult prison, it used to be said that people maybe graduated from St. Patrick's to Mountjoy, and unfortunately, led a very difficult life throughout their whole lives. And I just wonder if you have undertaken any research in relation to this to try and track people who have been in Oberstown and to try and ensure that all the services are working to ensure that they can live useful and happy lives. And just in relation to the agencies which support the work, I think, of your service in Oberstown, for example, the Tala West Childhood Development Initiative, LaCayla, in the Probation Service, the Youth YAP, the Youth Advocacy Programme, and indeed TUSLA itself. I mean, have you received any requests from them for increased funding to be able to support the work of Oberstown and the service generally, and to try and ensure that that people will be able to lead, as I said, useful and peaceful lives?
Thank you very much for your cooperation, Deputy.
Thank you. May I say, just in terms of your last two questions about the request for support, I'll investigate that and come back to you, as well as the question. Of course, it's an excellent one in terms of research being conducted in terms of when the young people move on from Oberstown in terms of the path that they take. Again, I will come back to you in that regard. I mean, I'm fully aware of, and having been, I suppose, in terms of St. Patrick's Institution, particularly Wheatfield, attending there and meeting some of the young people who, who really should have been in Oberstown, but we weren't able to do that. And so the huge issues there, and sometimes that movement not necessarily outside of the prison context, and how important that is. And so I think your question then is a good one in terms of what happens in terms of the Oberstown young people. As you know, there's a brilliant educational facility that's part of Oberstown, and that's important. But the final thing I just wanted to make reference to is the bail supervision scheme that is also operative, that I think is working really well, and that we want to extend in order to offer them more opportunity outside.